On July 2, 2012, at approximately 1:20 a.m., a small fire flickered in the darkness along a Walt Road in rural Franklin County, Tennessee. The summer air was hot and dry, and two teenagers driving down the isolated stretch of road noticed flames rising from within the trees. At first, they assumed it was a brush fire or an abandoned campfire that had gotten out of control. A Walt Road was not a place people stopped. It was secluded, surrounded by woods, with the nearest church nearly half a mile away and homes even farther across a bridge. It was the kind of road drivers simply passed through. Concerned the fire might spread, the teenagers called emergency services. Firefighters and deputies arrived quickly and began working to contain the blaze. But as they moved closer to the center of the fire, it became clear that this was not an accident. The flames had been deliberately set, and at the center of them lay the body of a young woman. The victim was 24-year-old Megan Sharpton. Tullahoma, Tennessee, just over an hour south of Nashville, was known as a quiet, close-knit community. Residents described it as peaceful and quaint, a place where neighbors knew each other and serious violence was rare. Megan had become part of that community after her family moved there and eventually settled down. She came from a large family and was especially close to her mother, Kelly, and her siblings. Friends described Megan as hardworking, outgoing, and determined. She had a sharp sense of humor and an energy that seemed to push her forward in everything she did. At 24, she was just 2 months away from graduating from the Tennessee Technology Center with a degree in practical nursing. Nursing was not just a career choice for her. It was a goal she had worked toward tirelessly. To support herself, Megan balanced 2 part-time jobs alongside her studies. She waited tables at a local steakhouse and also worked at a nursing home, gaining hands-on experience in the very field she hoped to build her future in. She was driven by ambition and by a desire to create a stable, meaningful life. Those who knew her believed she had everything going for her. She had been in a relationship with her boyfriend, Chris, for 3 years, and they were living together at the time. While their relationship had experienced ups and downs, nothing suggested that Megan's life was in immediate danger. In fact, the days leading up to July 1st seemed entirely ordinary. On the afternoon of July 1st, Megan had made plans to visit her mother's house. Her sister was in town from out of state, and the family intended to spend the evening together. Later that day, however, Megan called her mother to explain that something unexpected had come up. A last-minute job interview had been offered to her. A man had contacted her about a position caring for his elderly grandmother. It sounded promising, and Megan was excited. She even mentioned that she might receive upfront payment if the interview went well. For a young nursing student eager to gain more direct caregiving experience, it seemed like the perfect opportunity. Her family understood and encouraged her. They agreed to see her afterward. That visit never happened. As the evening stretched into night, Megan did not arrive at her mother's home. Her phone went unanswered. Chris tried to reach her but received no response. At first, there was confusion rather than panic. Perhaps the interview had gone longer than expected. Perhaps she had stayed at her mother's house after all. But as midnight passed and there was still no word, worry began to set in. Unbeknownst to her family, Megan would never return home. When authorities extinguished the flames on a Walt Road in the early hours of July 2nd, they began to assess the scene more closely. The body had been placed deliberately in the wooded area and set on fire. Megan was naked from the waist down. There were no personal belongings nearby. No purse, no phone, no keys, and no identification. The position of the body suggested she had already been dead before the fire was ignited. Investigators immediately suspected that she had been killed elsewhere and transported to this remote location in an attempt to destroy evidence. The brutality of the attack became even clearer during the autopsy. Megan had been sexually assaulted. She had suffered severe blunt force trauma to her head. Her skull was so badly damaged that officers at the scene had noticed visible indentations. She had also been shot through the cheek. Although the beating had been vicious, it was the gunshot wound that ultimately caused her death. Authorities believed the fire had been set in an effort to eliminate forensic evidence, particularly biological material left behind after the assault. Ironically, the heat of the fire would later play a role in preserving crucial evidence rather than destroying it. At the time her body was discovered, no official missing persons report had yet been filed. However, word spread quickly through social media about a young woman with distinctive star tattoos found in the area. Megan had star tattoos on her ankle representing her siblings and another on the back of her neck. When her mother saw a Facebook post describing these tattoos, she felt a sinking certainty. She contacted authorities and her worst fears were confirmed. The murder sent shockwaves through Tullahoma. Residents struggled to reconcile the brutality of the crime with the peaceful reputation of their town. Fear began to spread. If someone capable of such violence was still free, no one felt entirely safe. Investigators began by examining those closest to Megan. Chris was questioned extensively. Though he appeared visibly shaken and devastated, detectives needed to rule out any possibility of domestic conflict escalating into violence. The couple had experienced relationship difficulties, and Megan's sister initially suspected him. A search of the apartment Megan shared with Chris revealed blood in the bathroom and drug paraphernalia, leading police to question both Chris and his roommate, Robbie. Robbie admitted that the drug paraphernalia belonged to him and that he had been struggling privately with substance use. He also revealed that he and Megan had been involved in a secret relationship. This revelation raised immediate questions about jealousy and possible motives. However, further investigation weakened these suspicions. Chris had a solid alibi, verified by his workplace. Phone records showed that Robbie had been texting Megan repeatedly throughout the night, expressing concern when she failed to respond. Investigators eventually concluded that neither man was responsible for her death. Meanwhile, Megan's red 1995 Ford Mustang was located approximately 15 miles away in Bedford County on Three Forks Ridge Road. The vehicle appeared abandoned. Inside, investigators found a handwritten note containing directions to an address: 850 Shelfer Road. The address did not exist. This discovery confirmed what detectives had begun to suspect. Megan had been lured somewhere under false pretenses. Chris provided another key piece of information. On the day Megan disappeared, she had received a call from a man seeking a caregiver for his grandmother. The caller had said that a woman named Naomi had recommended Megan for the job. Police identified a former classmate of Megan's named Naomi and went to speak with her. She denied recommending Megan and stated that they barely knew each other, having only carpooled to class a few times. She could not explain why her name had been used. This troubling detail suggested premeditation. Someone had deliberately invoked Naomi's name to make the job offer seem legitimate. Around the same time, media attention intensified as comparisons were drawn to the high-profile disappearance of another nursing student, Holly Bobo, who had vanished 6 months earlier in a different Tennessee county. Though no evidence directly linked the cases, speculation about a possible predator targeting nursing students heightened public anxiety. Despite mounting pressure, investigators focused on tangible evidence. The mysterious job interview call had come from an unregistered prepaid phone. Tracing the purchase of that phone led detectives to a local store in Tullahoma. Surveillance footage showed a man buying the prepaid device. At one point, he placed his personal phone on the counter, indicating that he already owned a working phone and was deliberately acquiring another. Cameras captured him leaving the store and getting into a red pickup truck. The man was identified as Timmy Gifford, a known small-time drug dealer. When questioned, Timmy claimed he had purchased the phone on behalf of a friend who had recently undergone surgery and could not buy it himself. That friend's name was Donnie Frank Jones Jr. Donnie Jones had a significant criminal history, including convictions for aggravated assault, burglary, and forgery. As investigators dug deeper, they learned something else. Donnie was married. His wife's name was Naomi Jones, the same name used to gain Megan's trust. For the first time, detectives saw the outline of a calculated plan. and their attention shifted firmly toward Donnie Jones. With a clear connection now established between the prepaid phone and Donnie Frank Jones Jr., investigators returned to the Jones residence, this time with sharper focus and growing suspicion. When first questioned, Donnie denied knowing Megan at all. However, as detectives pressed further, he altered his account. He claimed he vaguely remembered giving Megan and his wife a ride to class once or twice the previous year. The shift in his story did not go unnoticed. Donnie insisted he had been home with his children on the night Megan disappeared. He denied asking Timothy Gifford to purchase the prepaid phone. When confronted about the phone records, he maintained his innocence and told investigators they were free to search his home and collect a DNA sample. He claimed he had nothing to hide. At that stage, officers searched the residence but found nothing immediately incriminating. They left with a DNA swab and continued building their case. While the forensic analysis was pending, Megan's nursing school graduation ceremony took place. It was October 26, 2012, the day she should have walked across the stage to receive the diploma she had worked so hard to earn. Instead, her mother, Kelly Sharpton, stood in her place. 18 of Megan's classmates honored her memory. A seat was left empty where she would have sat. Kelly accepted her daughter's diploma with pride and heartbreak intertwined. Megan had been so close to achieving her dream. She had plans to help people, to touch lives, to build a meaningful career in nursing. That future had been stolen from her. Soon after, forensic results provided the breakthrough investigators needed. The DNA profile obtained from Megan's rape kit was entered into CODIS, the combined DNA index system used nationwide to compare criminal DNA profiles. The results came back with a match. The DNA belonged to Donnie Frank Jones Jr. He was brought in again for questioning. Confronted with the DNA evidence linking him to the sexual assault, Donnie changed his story once more. This time, he claimed that he and Megan had engaged in a consensual sexual affair. He suggested they had kept the relationship secret and implied that this explained the presence of his DNA. Investigators, however, recognized the claim as an attempt to distance himself from the violence. There was no evidence supporting a consensual relationship. Nevertheless, at that moment, they could not yet disprove his assertions solely on the basis of DNA. Without additional corroborating evidence, the sexual contact alone was not enough to secure a murder conviction. But Donnie had another vulnerability. As a convicted felon with prior felony offenses, including aggravated burglary and aggravated assault, he was legally prohibited from possessing firearms. Authorities learned that he did, in fact, own guns. This allowed them to obtain a search warrant and place him under arrest on weapons charges while continuing to investigate Megan's murder. Over the following months, detectives methodically assembled the remaining pieces of the case. Ballistics testing revealed that the bullet recovered from Megan's body was consistent with a rifle owned by Donnie. GPS and cell phone data further strengthened the timeline. Records showed that the prepaid burner phone used to contact Megan moved in coordination with Donnie's personal phone on the night of July 1st. The two devices traveled together in the same vehicle. Cell tower pings mapped a chilling route. The first location corresponded to the area where investigators believed Megan had initially been lured and abducted. The second aligned with property owned by Donnie's family, a farm where authorities later discovered a partially burned scarf belonging to Megan. The third matched the remote stretch of a Walt road where her body had been found burning. The digital evidence placed Donnie at every critical location. Further analysis of the prepaid phone revealed something even more disturbing. Donnie had contacted multiple women in the weeks leading up to Megan's murder. Many of them worked in nursing or elderly care. He had been calling randomly, posing as someone seeking assistance for a relative. Megan had not been targeted by chance. She had been selected as part of a deliberate pattern. Investigators concluded that Donnie had used his wife's name, Naomi, to make the job offer appear legitimate. He had accessed Megan's number through his wife's phone. Naomi herself was at work during the time of the crime, and phone records confirmed she had no involvement. She had unknowingly provided the name that gave Megan a false sense of security. On November 5, 2012, a Franklin County grand jury returned an indictment against Donnie Frank Jones Jr. He was charged with first-degree murder, 2 counts of aggravated kidnapping, and 2 counts of aggravated rape. For the small rural community of Tullahoma, the indictment brought both relief and sorrow. The brutality of the crime had been almost unimaginable. Many residents had struggled to comprehend how such violence could occur in their quiet town. In court, Donnie appeared shackled at the hands and feet. He faced Megan's mother, who clutched a photograph of her daughter. Despite the overwhelming evidence, he entered a plea of not guilty. Prosecutors considered seeking the death penalty, given the severity and premeditated nature of the crime. The state's theory was clear. Donnie had lured Megan under false pretenses, sexually assaulted her, beaten her with a firearm, shot her, and then transported her body to a remote location where he set it on fire in an attempt to destroy evidence. Ironically, the fire had preserved crucial forensic elements that ultimately tied him to the crime. As preparations for trial advanced, Donnie faced the possibility of capital punishment. In February 2013, he chose to enter a plea agreement. He pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in exchange for the removal of the death penalty from consideration. The agreement ensured that he would spend the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole. During sentencing, the court imposed life imprisonment without parole. Later, Donnie attempted to withdraw his guilty plea, claiming his attorney had pressured him and that his wife had been threatened. A circuit court judge temporarily granted a motion to reconsider. However, the original judgment was ultimately reinstated. Donnie Jones remains incarcerated, serving life without parole. For Megan's family, the conviction brought a measure of justice, but not peace. Kelly Sharpton spoke publicly about her daughter's final moments, acknowledging that they were likely filled with fear and suffering. She expressed gratitude to investigators who had worked tirelessly on the case. Yet no legal outcome could restore what had been lost. Megan's sister later reflected that had Megan not lost her life, Donnie might still be free, potentially targeting other young women. In that sense, Megan's death prevented further harm within the community. It was a painful truth that offered some fragile consolation. Tragically, the grief proved overwhelming. In November 2013, just over a year after Megan's murder, Kelly Sharpton took her own life. The trauma of losing her daughter in such a brutal manner had become unbearable. Her death deepened the sorrow surrounding an already devastating case. Today, a 7-foot memorial stands near the place where Megan's body was discovered. It is adorned with 24 stars, one for each year of her life, and serves as a tribute to the tattoos that symbolized her love for her siblings. The memorial is both a remembrance and a warning. Even in quiet communities, calculated evil can exist behind ordinary faces. Megan Sharpton was not simply a victim of violence. She was a daughter, a sister, a student on the brink of a meaningful career. Her life was marked by ambition, compassion, and promise. The loss of her future continues to echo through her family and her community. Her case serves as a solemn reminder of the dangers posed by predatory deception and the importance of vigilance when confronted with opportunities that seem too sudden or too convenient. It also underscores the power of forensic science and determined investigation in delivering justice. Though Donnie Jones will spend the remainder of his life behind bars, the impact of his actions cannot be undone. Megan's memory endures through the people who loved her and through a community forever changed by what happened on a dark